All right, everybody, we are back on Skywatchers Radio right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network and PSN Radio. And with us live is Paul Dale Roberts and his friend Monique, who's on the line with us. Paul, what's up, buddy? You're back on the air.
Hey, what's up, Jacqueline? Hey, that cough is because 2 days ago I had a terrible cold. And now Monique has, my roommate, she has my cold. Yeah, so, oh well.
Also, you guys are going back and forth with the terrible cold here, huh?
Yeah. So, I'm still a little bit congested, but
aside from that, how you been? Aside from the terrible cold,
I've been on a lot of investigations. I'm still waiting for the summer to get here because we're going to do that Mount Shasta UFO Bigfoot investigation, and then we're going to do an investigation over in Antioch, in which UFOs are being seen near a diamond mine and a gold mine.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So,
now, can we get some gold to pay for our trip to Mount Shasta?
That'd be nice.
Hey, there you go.
Well, wait a minute, when is the Mount Shasta trip anyway? When is that Mount Shasta trip, and how do we join if we want to?
Oh, that's in July. So we'll be headed up there, camping out all night, and doing a Bigfoot hunt during the daytime and a UFO hunt during the nighttime. And Mount Shasta, being a very mystical mountain that it is, the last of the Lemurians supposedly live inside the caverns. They even had a sighting of the Bat Squatch. And the Bat Squatch was actually seen in Mount Rainier, but now there's reports that the Bat Squatch is being seen at Mount Shasta.
Okay, I've yet to hear the term Bat Squatch, so...
Yeah, that's new for me, too. What, is he like the cousin of the Batman? What are we working with here?
Well, the Bat Squatch is basically something that kind of almost resembles a Sasquatch, but it has the head of a bat. And so, therefore, it's called the Bat Squatch.
That, now that you say it, it makes perfect sense.
Hang on, I got to Google this one.
The Bat Squash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Google it. Yes.
Bat Squatch.
And it was a sighting. The very first sighting, and where it was the moniker Bat Squatch came from, was the sighting in Mount Rainier.
No offense, but I'm looking at pictures and sketches. This thing looks like the gargoyles from the old cartoon on CW.
Kind of does, yeah.
Huh.
They look
freaky,
like,
though.
It more looks like a wolf with. I mean, I'm looking at these pictures here of the artists.
Well, remember this is artist rendering, and they're going to go on whatever rendering they have to go on, I guess. But I've never heard of the Bat Squash. Since when has this mythology been around?
Oh,
or this thing.
Well, I don't remember when the first sighting was in Mount Rainier.
Okay.
But I guess there was several people who saw this flying creature that had the face of a bat and the body of a Sasquatch.
I'm sorry, I got to stop you right there, and I got to call hoax on it this way, and only this way. The amount of mass of the weight of something of a Sasquatch size, you know what kind of wingspan you would need? You'd need at least a 50-foot wingspan to be able to lift that kind of weight. So unless you're telling me that thing has a wingspan of 25 on each side, and he's not hitting any trees with it, I gotta say, I don't believe it.
I don't know about that one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm calling you on it. I'm not calling you on it. I'm calling...
They're calling me out? What?
I'm not calling you out, but I'm saying the physics of this.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. Yeah,
unless he's wearing a Batman anti-gravity belt or something, or whatnot, you cannot lift that mass with the short amount of wingspan that they're saying this thing has.
Now, are you actually looking at one of the articles on there?
Yeah, I am. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at like 4 or 5 different.
What are they saying? What are they saying that how much it weighs?
It doesn't say any weight, but based on the sketchings of the size of this thing, it doesn't have. I mean, they didn't make the thing step on a scale for a weigh-in for a boxing match here. Come on,
Well, but look, just a mere definition of what we're talking about here. It's a bat-headed Sasquatch.
also, too, no one's ever proven, that Mothman exists. But
That's
the
right.
same thing. It goes with the Mothman.
You're
but
right.
there's so many people who actually believe it.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying
no. But Alan, hold on. He makes an excellent point though. We've always had the open mind that there could be something to the Mothman. If there is such a creature as a Mothman, it could be the same kind of thing with this creature. This could be another Mothman out there.
Hold on, Angel. I'm not arguing with you that this exists. I'm arguing about it flying. When was the last time you saw a chicken 100 feet in the air?
I am with you 100%, but we could say the same thing about the Mothman.
Right.
I can tell you how it flies. I can tell you actually how it probably flies.
Okay.
Very difficult.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Mothman, supposedly came out of a vortex out of this abandoned TNT factory over at Point Pleasant, right?
Okay.
So,
sounds good to me already.
Okay, and we never caught a Bigfoot. Okay, sure, right. We got this hunter who's climbing up and down. He shot one. I haven't seen it yet. What if Bigfoot, Mothman, and Bat Squatch are all elemental? So if they're elemental, let's say they can change themselves from a matter form into energy, then they would be able to fly.
I don't think they're based on how they've acted, based on what people are seeing. They're on a high enough plane of existence to transform themselves into energy. They are too.
You never know.
They are too primal.
Even the Greys go through walls. Yeah, abductees are saying the Greys, when they're abducted, they go right through the walls.
You're right, but we don't know if. Yes, but Greys have been known to use this thing called technology in one form or another. I have yet to hear Bat Squatch going through TSA to get on a plane to fly.
Maybe the wings are some form of technology and not natural.
But the only thing is, though, as a paranormal investigator, I have to investigate. So
I agree 100%.
Now, hold on.
Like I said, I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying I got a problem with the physics of them flying.
But as an investigator, what have you come up with? Like, what's your investigation led you with this thing?
Well, with the Bat Squatch, I've only interviewed. I actually interviewed a couple witnesses that actually claim they saw it.
Okay.
And there should be an article if you Google it, Bat Squatch, Paul Dale Roberts. You'll see the information on those witnesses. But they claim that they were out there. I forget what they were doing. They weren't hunting. I think they were just camping out, and they saw this creature coming out from the trees, and they had a huge wingspan, and it flew off, and it swooped. It swooped towards them, and then flew off. And okay, and I understand where he's come from about the Bat Squatch just being too heavy to fly off anywhere. But what I'm always thinking too is because a lot of the alien abductees that I do interview, they say that the Greys come through the wall. So, and one lady who I interviewed, she said that they actually told her that they're able to transform from energy into matter. So I figure if the Greys, and also too, if you look at the old Sumerian clay tablets, they talk about a creature similar to Bigfoot, and they went into caverns. What's not to say that they don't have the same power as the Greys do?
It's a good point.
And if Mothman, if he's an extraterrestrial, he may have the same power. And even though we're able to see him fly, he's actually in an energy form.
Now, has there been any credible proof of the Mothman, or mostly just stories and reports of people seeing him?
Well, yeah.
Like any images, any footage, any footprints,
any DNA, anything?
Any hair.
They've had some documentaries of which I've actually looked at, and where they have pictures of what looks like a Mothman on top of a building. So, but the only thing is, if something, Mothman, the Greys have more proof than the Mothman. The Greys have more proof than, let's say, Bat Squatch. But it's just an interesting thing. It's why are certain people saying that they're seeing these things? What are they actually seeing? Are they seeing like a huge owl? And I'm just kind of curious, and talk to some of these people, and maybe I'll have my own experience. I don't know.
Maybe they're using really good moonshine these days.
Well, even like when you watch Destination Truth, I mean, so many of those programs, they hunt for this and they hunt for this cryptid, and they come out empty-handed. I mean, there's just so many stories.
That's my main issue right there. There's never any definitive proof. You know what I mean?
Well, hang on. I found a photo of Bat Squatch. I'm actually sending it to you in Skype.
Oh, I see that. Let me download this thing.
And while you guys are looking at that,
yes.
Also too, okay, check this out. I work at Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Wow. And
I talk to so many hunters, and I got so many hunters out there who claim they see Bigfoot. So, and a lot of the hunters know that I am a paranormal investigator on the side, and they talk to me on the side, and they say, "Hey, Paul, I got to tell you a story." So I hear so many stories. So are all of these people lying, or are they actually seeing something? I mean, and I'm pretty sure that these hunters know a bear from a Bigfoot.
I agree with that, 100%. Yes.
Unless they're a little bit under the spell of moonshine or pot. Maybe is pot legal up there?
No, they got medical marijuana, but
see, that would do it. Yeah. That's all you need.
Oh, I sneeze so hard my back hurts. I need my pot card.
Correct. There you go. I don't know. And look, there could be some truth to the Mothman, to Bigfoot, Bat Squash. There could be some truth to anything.
Wait. That's Bat Squatch, not Squash.
Whatever.
Squatch.
That's what I said. Anyway, there could be some truth to any of this stuff, Paul, but the problem, again, is it goes back to the lack of evidence. But, Alan here just showed me a picture which I think might be proof. In fact, I'm going to post this on our Facebook page. If everybody goes over to Skywatchers Radio's Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Skywatchers Radio. You'll be able to see the picture right now sent to me by Alan, my co-host, and I think, Alan, you're right. This is definitive proof.
I think it's a definitive proof of Bat Squatch. Absolutely. And we like people to call in and comment on that photo, and Angel will be going over that phone number again since I still don't know it by heart.
Yeah, it's 786-245-8127. Again, 786-245-8127. Open lines from here to the end of the show tonight. Again, we were listening to the words of Mr. Paul Dale Roberts, who is informing us of this never-heard-before creature, the Bat Squash.
Squatch, not squash.
Leave me alone, man. I'm Cuban.
It's not crushing you. It's not crushing you, okay? I'm like, dude, come on, really?
Are you gonna start with me, man? Am I like Data from the Goonies now?
What is this? Is this like Lost in Translation for you? It's
bit.
Like, is this the Latino?
I'm still trying to rap. Look, man, don't make me say really stereotypical things here about Latinos.
But okay.
But this is an amazing picture, Alan. I will say this much. I mean, I've never heard of this thing before, but after seeing this picture, I'm definitely intrigued now. Go ahead, Paul.
One thing is, there's so many stories, of cryptids and everything else, and there's really hard to get any kind of evidence. And, sometimes there's the footprints. I haven't heard about any really good hair samples that show that the DNA is something else. But, okay, what is really intriguing and shows some kind of proof that there is life out there besides here on Earth is the case of High Brazil.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the island that's supposed to be off of Ireland, isn't it?
Exactly. And
wow, this is funny that I know this. I was actually watching something on my downloads about that today.
I'm surprised you actually know something too on the show. That's good stuff. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. When I was flying over Ireland, believe me, I was looking out the plane window looking for High Brazil. But High Brazil, what really gets to me, and it's still so intriguing, is with the Rendlesham incident. And the guy who supposedly touched one of the UFOs, one of the MPs touched the UFO, and he got all these computer codes in his head. It was made up of ones and zeros. And he wrote it down on a little notebook, and for 10 years he never even talked about it because he would think that people thought he was just crazy. And this computer expert took those codes, and it actually came out to words to the effect of that it was an exploratory group looking for the advancement of mankind. And it had the exact coordinates to High Brazil. It had the exact coordinates to Sedona in Arizona. And
no kidding.
Yeah. So it's like, with something like that, I mean, if you took it to a court of law, that's pretty doggone good evidence.
Well, it's it's still not definitive proof, though.
I'm sorry, I got to interrupt on this one here.
Go ahead.
Not calling anybody out on that in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, see, you're going to keep messing with me all night. Go ahead.
But
am I getting called out again?
I think his beef was with me, though. Go ahead.
Let me get on the airplane, okay, and I'll be right there.
The whole thing with High Brazil, and I find it truly fascinating. I really do. The theory of High Brazil existing and where it is. The problem is that there were no coordinates, from my understanding, except for on navigational maps from the 1600s and 1700s, and that's it. And there they just had approximations. So I would like to understand, how can someone from Rendlesham give exact coordinates, and if it's in ones and zeros, they translated it from binary to English, or how do you know to go from ones and zeros to English and not to Aramaic, or ones and zeros to Spanish, or not trying to rag on you here, Angel, or ones and zeros to some other language? How do they know the translation? Who made the decision to translate it that way?
The same people that did it in Star Trek and Star Wars. They all speak English.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
Okay, if I was a Gray and I was looking at a military installation in England, I would definitely have it translated into English.
Well, if they were stuck because of a time capsule issue and, they're out of time, they could have been talking Greek or Rowanish or Wowdish, or whatnot, time is all relative, isn't it?
If time is linear, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they knew exactly what time period that is, because they were looking at a military installation that had nuclear capability. So, and I believe that's what their whole purpose was. That was during the time of the Cold War.
All right, I'll go with you on this one. I'm just like, I found the High Brazil being where the Irish, gods and came down to earth, and I find that all fascinating. I truly do. No joke, no lie. I'm just, I'm trying to understand how a guy who touched a ship in Rendlesham has the exact coordinates, and if he had the exact coordinates, why has there been no expedition to go there?
Right.
And you're talking about in the 80s, too. You're talking about the early 80s where
UFOs were at a high point.
Popular.
But ufology was at a high point in the 80s, especially after what Reagan said.
But how many people in the early 80s knew about binary codes? I didn't know.
Half the geeky programmers that were programming the IBM AS400s and the TRS-80s and the Commodore 64s. They all were programmed in binary.
But, when they do the interviews with this guy, he doesn't seem like he's computer literate. He just doesn't come off that way.
Well,
I'm not saying, so he's not the one who translated it. who translated it into from ones and zeros into figuring out, aha, there's Cydonia, right on the map. On page 53, that's 0 over there, that's Cydonia. And on page 12 over here, that's High Brazil right there.
Right.
But
the point
is that I would imagine that other computer programmers and that are able to read computer programs checked it out also. And
that's actually a good question. Has there been any other reports of any other programmers who have validated his report? Mm-hmm. Has there been any?
I haven't heard of any, but I mean, I would imagine. Mind you, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm really not.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just trying to I'm a number cruncher myself. I want to understand the numbers that helped us get to the logical conclusion that we are at right now. Mm-hmm. That's all I want. Mm-hmm. I'm not picking on you. I'm not trying to beat you up on this. I'm just trying to validate the information, and how is that information validated?
Yeah. Well, okay.
He's going to hate me by the end of the show.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, he is.
But but Stanton Freeman, I mean, he's there, okay, and he's claiming that the binary code for High Brazil and everything else is correct, blah blah blah.
Really? So, okay, that lends some credibility there.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, they've done what now 4 documentaries on it, and they have all these credible ufologists who are all backing up what this computer programmer claims.
Well, hold on, let me cut you off right there. When we say credible ufologists, let's name some of these guys. What are we talking about here?
Bill Burns.
Okay. That's credible.
Stanton Freeman.
Okay, credible.
All right.
Okay, and Nick Redfern.
He's a good guy. I like Nick. Okay. He's pretty credible. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're all backing up the computer programmer. So I would imagine that they would have it checked out.
I'm gonna have to talk to Bill about this because I produced feature theater for Bill and Nancy Burns, so I'm gonna have a talk with Bill later.
I've actually been published 8 times in Bill Burns' UFO magazine.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna love what they're gonna do with the magazine. Something new.
Yeah, Bill Burns. In fact, Bill Burns and his wife used to email me all the time, and his wife is still on my Facebook, and
here's a secret.
Until he went big time on me.
Paul, here's a secret. His wife is listening in right now.
Oh no!
She's listening to this phone call right now.
So, Nancy, if you do want to call in and have a nice little conversation, you are more than welcome to at this time.
So you and Nancy go way back, yeah?
Nancy is a sweetheart. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
And she's listening in right now laughing.
Yeah, Bill Burns, I love him to death, so he's a good guy. So.
Well, you're going to love what they got in store with UFO Magazine and what it's going to become. Anyway, but yeah, Nancy, if you want to call in, go ahead. Anyway, so anything other than this bat squash?
Thank you for pronouncing it right. Yes, finally. Okay.
That we should talk about tonight.
Well, tell us about the excursion you're doing.
Did you want to talk to Monique about her abduction? I mean,
yeah.
Not her abduction, but her missing time.
Yeah, we touched on that last time. We touched on Monique last time, and we'd like to touch Monique again.
Let's be investigators and actually talk to a witness.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's touch Monique again.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's get her on the line. Okay, hold on.
Alan, we're going to touch on Monique again.
Hey.
Okay, sounds good.
Listen. Okay, ask her about Chupacabra, too.
That's definitely what I was thinking.
How much time do we have to work with now? More important.
About 10 minutes.
Good.
Before we go on break.
Okay.
Got 10 minutes to touch.
All right. Okay, here's Monique. Okay. And she has
Hi,
a cold,
Monique.
So. Okay, hold on.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, boy.
Hi. Hey,
Hi.
Becca, how are you doing?
How you doing, sweetie? How's it going?
I'm a little stuffed up, trying to...
I hear.
Lots of, yeah.
I can tell.
Not that bad. not that bad, so poor me. So what's going on?
Well, Paul said you wanted to talk about your abduction. I know when we had you two on last time, we kind of breezed over it a little bit.
Okay,
Anything you want to share with us?
Sure. Let me see. It was, oh my goodness, it would have to be about 1989, 1990, Woodland, California. There was something called Cruise Night, and it was kind of like the hot August night that became so popular in Las Vegas. And coincidentally, the person that started that, his name was Johnny Garcia, who happened to be a keyboardist for Santana.
Oh, nice.
And oh my God, Johnny is an awesome guy, and I worked with him for 5 years at a university called DQU, which was absolutely wonderful because this is a native university.
What was it called again?
DQU. It's no longer open at this time. But in '74, the natives literally took over an army installation, and we were able to get the first Native American school. It's kind of really interesting. But long story short, going back to the abduction thing, my friend Gabriel and I had left Woodland going towards Sacramento. You have to go over a bypass. This was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were kind of forced out due to having this cruise night, hot August night, which is a car show. Basically, all these beautiful cars from the 30s on up, the most primo cars, were going up and down this old historical town called Woodland. Okay.
I'm with you so far, up and down. Okay.
Okay. Which was kind of interesting because the original persons who had started Woodland, California, a lot of downtown was actually structured by the monies that came from the Civil War. And it was not the North that helped out Woodland. So that's kind of bizarre. So anyway, as we were cruising over the bridge, as I said, it was about 3 o'clock, we look over to the right, and the water is right there, and rice paddies were underneath it. And we thought at first it was just this really strange reflection for the sun, because it was coming to the right. The sun should be forward. We were seeing it to the right of us through the windows as we're crossing a bypass, which is like a bridge.
Okay.
So as we're staring into this, we notice that it's moving and it's getting closer to us. And this sphere, this light, this force, looks like a giant glowing ball. It just looks, like, is this a hologram? Is this, whatever. It did not seem like it was really what we were seeing. And we were like, whoa, wait a moment, type of thing. At that time, we looked around, and it's now 7 o'clock at night, and we had only moved like 10 feet.
Okay. That's...
Okay.
I'm doing the math here. Yeah.
So where did the time go? And so my friend Gabriel and me, this happened like nearly, 20 years ago or so? And he decided to go back to school, and he happens to be majoring in psychology and going back for his bachelor's. He said that 4 other persons that he had known had had the same experience, and that I am not crazy and I did not cause him to have hysteria.
Now, have you guys, you or he had hypnosis and try to see what happened?
Well, it was to the point where he has been in so much self-denial. He's a realist, okay? You have to prove it to him with science and fact, everything. It's the fact that he finally admitted to even having the experience just 3 days ago was just like, wow, because after almost 20 years, he almost convinced me it did not happen. I do not know what happened in between. No, I have not had a hypnotist. However, the whole experience makes so much sense, and the fact that he is finally giving credence to the experience, it's really kind of making me think about a lot of, we had dual dreams, and if I'm at a distance, I broke down in LA, California. Woodland, California is closer to the capital of Sacramento, which is usually about an 8 to 9 hour drive between the two.
Okay.
My friend Gabriel got there within 5 hours to make sure that I was okay, just because we have this kooky link. We do not spend a lot of time together. You know, we can go for a couple of years without even talking, and it's totally cool because we're very, very close friends, even though we don't have to talk all the time. However, every time I get into some kind of odd predicament, he's the first person that calls me, or his mother. And it's just, you know, we have a strange psychic link. But
so
yes,
you're saying that you're good friends?
We are beyond good friends without having to have, we don't have to talk to each other, see each other, or even know what one another's lives are about. But the connection that was built after that experience is like he's always there in my head, or I'm always in his head without having to pick up the phone. Very odd. And
how long again was the missing time? How long was it again?
Well, from 3 to 7, I would say that would be at least 4 hours.
That is an amazing amount of missing time.
Right, and to only, when you're starting across a bridge and it's 3 o'clock, and you feel like the sun is to the right of you, but no, it's in fact, you know, in front of you, and then all of a sudden, you know, your day turns into night, and you're having the last conversation when it was day, when you looked at the time, because you had to get back to Woodland. We were just picking up some friends. You know, what the heck happened? And so we both looked at each other, and it was almost like if you've ever hit black ice, and suddenly you're spinning in circles, and time just kind of stops for a moment, and
never had
for
that
whatever
experience.
reason, you don't have no fear. Okay, you avoid some kind of a collision. You know the experience happened. You're not quite sure why that experience happened. You don't want to give it any more thought because it was just too real, too weird. Thank God you're here. But it's a moment of time that almost freezes. Well, that's what felt like after 4 hours. So I did not see the sun go down. I did not, you know, even...
The sun was just up and then it was just down. You didn't see it happen.
Yes, it was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. And for two of us to black out, that's not possible for the vehicle, the machine to be in the same place. If you would truly sleep.
Is it possible that maybe you, were you two together at a party before? What were you doing before you were in together?
We got chewed out by our friends for not picking them up on time.
Okay, but what were you doing before?
Okay, go ahead.
What were you doing before you got to that point?
We were at Cruise. We were doing, Main Street was filled with tons and tons of old cars that go about 15 miles an hour, okay?
Okay.
It took us a very long time to maneuver past, you know, certain streets because everything was a detour. We were able to get onto the bridge. We had to pick up friends in Sacramento that were just directly over the bridge.
So at no point you guys didn't stop for drinks or anything somewhere? Maybe somebody slipped you something?
No.
Nothing like that could have happened. Okay.
We're talking about. I used to MC and do a lot of things with entertainment, as far as music and musicians, and persons who had counted on me. I was set on deadline. There was no in between.
Gotcha.
So I was supposed to be somewhere, and I was dressed up from head to toe.
You're ready to rock.
Yes, and drinks or nothing else was more important to me than taking care of what I need to take care of.
Well, the reason I ask is in the line of business you're in, it could possibly happen if somebody maybe slipped you to something. I don't know. It's an interesting story, though, Alan.
Then a car accident would have happened.
Yeah, that's there you go. 4 hours.
Yeah. So it's definitely a mystery, and I think I may do the hypnosis thing that you had spoke about earlier.
You definitely should. You and your friend should definitely seek hypnosis and see if there's anything more there. What do you think, Alan?
I think that regression therapy might be a right thing to do at this point. I think there should be audio and video recordings of it so we can see what the story is, and hopefully it's going to be something good.
I'd love to actually do a follow-up on that if possible. We are out of time for this segment, though. I do have to let you guys go. We have Jason Martell waiting for the next hour, so stick around, guys. We're going to be back here on Skywatchers Radio. Monique, it's, like always, a lot of fun having you on. And Paul Dale Roberts, same thing, brother. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll have you back on the show very, very soon, and we'll continue this very interesting conversation. Our next guest is on with us, Mr. Jason Martell. He's a researcher, a lecturer. He specializes in ancient astronauts, Planet X, Sumerian culture, and the advanced technologies that we've been, kept from and have been kept hidden from our eyes for many, many years. Jason Martell, is a pleasure to have you back on, and good to talk to you again. It's been a while since we last talked. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me back on the show.
Now, catch us up to what the latest is that you're working on. I know that you're always a busy man, so give the audience a little bit of an update of what you're working on right now.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been launching a new product called Ancient School, which I'll kind of talk about a little bit more towards the end of our interview, because I have a free gift for your audience tonight, just for your radio listeners. So kind of excited about that. And really, we've been keeping busy with lots of filming for the show Ancient Aliens. It's now in its 6th season, and there's more episodes on the way. So it's a great honor and pleasure to be a part of that team.
Now, speaking of Ancient Aliens, they've covered a lot of topics. What are some of the topics that are going to be covered now in the next season?
Well, the question I get all the time about the show is really two main questions. One is, what's the next episode that they're going to be working on? And then the second question would usually be, what's the biggest piece of evidence to prove Ancient Aliens, or what's the the best piece, right?
I thought the best question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
please, go ahead. I was going to say, I thought the best question would be is, how does what's his name get his hair like that?
Yes.
Well, I'll answer that for number 3.
Okay. All right. I want to know what he's using.
Yeah, no. Well, the next episode coming out was probably, a hard question to answer, just because they have a whole slew that they're working on each season. I know that there's several in the queue, and I think the next one coming out has to do with star children. So that should be rather interesting. As far as the best piece of evidence, I'll come back to that when I'm going to rearrange it. Giorgio's hair. I love Giorgio. He's a great friend of mine, and I give him a lot of credit for carrying the Ancient Alien torch.
Do you guys actually get to see each other frequently, or is it all just, they fly and do interviews all in one bulk, or,
No, we're both located, Giorgio and I are both located in Southern California, so if you check our Facebook or Instagram pages, you see that we on occasion have the chance to do things off camera together with our fiancé.
Now, when he's off camera, is the hair like that at all times, or does he have a ponytail, and he just does that for the show?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So the hair question, from what I understand, when we first started filming in season 1, after the season 2, and there was a third episode, and he was just really late one day, or was running behind, and they forced him. They're like, Giorgio, let's go. We got to get you on camera. And he was like, fine, and he wasn't ready. And so supposedly he shot, and his hair was just, kind of messed up. And sure enough, through people's shock and awe, it actually stuck, and it held, and it seemed to be that his hair went viral. So good for him. Great.
His hair went viral.
So from a mistake to it went viral, and now it's his look.
It's his thing, and you know what? He wears it well, man. He's great. Now
he really does. And real quick, don't get us we're trying to diss him or anything, because we have no hair. That's the problem here. We're both envious of Mr. Tukalos, because he has hair, we don't. We're bald, man. That sucks for us. So go ahead.
Hey, well, you work it with what you have.
That is true. Correct.
But so. Go ahead. One more there.
No, I was going to say, but I know that the stuff that you usually cover on there has a lot to do with the ancient astronauts, which is something we were talking about earlier, and I wanted to actually get your opinion on this before we go any further. Something we talked about in the first hour of the show, where I made the assumption, or maybe the theory live on air, that with the lifespan that this planet has had for like 4-something billion years that we know of, maybe 5 billion, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, some of the ancient astronaut stuff, it could be us or an ancestor of human beings that left the planet and now they came back, and it's not so much some alien from like another galaxy out there. This all could be really just from Earth. All this activity, couldn't that be?
It could be, and I while I love the show Ancient Aliens, I don't personally subscribe to the idea that all the monuments were built by aliens, and most of the researchers don't.
Right.
It's a matter of their intervention and to what degree. And as we'll talk about tonight, I personally believe that there is a larger cycle of time that most of the ancient cultures were aware of, and they built these monuments as markers to denote where they were in this cycle that lasts 24,000 years. So
we're going back to the lung count?
No, the lung count is probably a good example of a knowledge base around this larger cycle of time, but they're just one reference. And really, so, a lot of the new research that's coming out kind of supports a new model for our solar system as being binary, having two suns. So the latest research that I've been looking into...
I've heard about that, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's a business partner of mine named Walter Cruttenden. He runs a conference that happens every year called CPAC. But he's also the founder of something called the Binary Research Institute. And I've got to give Walter props for the research they've done, because it does prove, through hard science, that what we currently call the precession of the equinox is to explain why we go through these new views of a constellation every 2,000 years, essentially the breakdown of the heavens into 12 zodiacal signs. That's the precession of the equinox. That's essentially a grand celestial clock. Right now we're in the age of Pisces.
Right.
In about 150 years we'll be in the age of Aquarius.
Right.
People don't understand some of the subtle nuances about, for instance, the age of Pisces. You see that little symbol of a fish on the back of many people's car. It's a little fish that has either a cross or it says Jesus in it.
Right.
Well, as popular...
Little do they know what that really means, right? Little do these people know.
The symbol of a fish is actually predating the symbol of Jesus and the fish. It's the astronomical symbol for the constellation of Pisces, which has been used, as we'll talk about tonight, for thousands and thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think one of the questions I was going to answer when we first started off there was, what's the biggest piece of evidence or the best ancient alien technology that we see? And really, for me, guys, it's the term vitrification. I've been talking about this a little bit more recently because I think it is an important factoid. Essentially, when we look at any of these megalithic sites where they have these blocks fitted together in such a way that there's no use of mortar, and we see it all over South America, Teotihuacan and Pumapunku, Machu Picchu, basically a lot of those sites around the ancient Lake Titicaca. And it seems like they had this building style that was they were using stones that were so large that fit into that global pattern of megaliths.
Right.
But some of these sites, again, Machu Picchu and Teotihuacan, Pumapunku, they've also found a way to fit the stones together, and some of them, again, are huge megalithic stones, and they fit together without any mortar. You can't even slide a piece of paper in between the stones. And it turns out that if you look at all of the cut points where the rocks come together, what we see is called evidence of vitrification, which means high heat has been applied to the stone, to the point where the stones were almost in a molten-like state, had become almost like lava. And then it's real easy to mold them and cut out intricate diagrams and shapes, and then they just re-harden back into stone. but we
Right.
still have no idea how ancient man was able to heat ancient stone to a lava-like state.
So were they using some type of a massive kiln or something?
Well, I know stone masonry and engineering goes back to the times of Machu Picchu, and even before that, they did have stone masonry back then, didn't they?
Well, they sure did, but
Yeah.
we just don't understand how they were able to, melt the hardest stones like granite and diorite to a molten-like state. That would require some serious ability to do that. So.
Well, I wouldn't put it past man to figure that out, though. I mean, there's a lot of technologies that we had back then that are completely lost to us now, that we have no idea how they did it. Doesn't always mean it was aliens, though.
No, it doesn't. But where we start to look for other pieces of evidence that, again, can point the needle towards that ancient astronaut theory is,
Right.
From a high level, we can just simply note that most ancient cultures, through their mythological tales, which we would describe now, most ancient cultures speak of a time when beings came down from the skies and departed great wisdom and knowledge to human beings. Now, we can look at even more recent scenarios rather than like way ancient biblical times. More recent scenarios seem to play out the same scenario that's taken place, where when we see these advanced technologies or beings utilizing advanced technologies, whether they're from this planet or another dimension or a lost civilization, what we've seen played over and over is a scenario called a cargo cult. During World War I, when American soldiers first started flying over remote areas like, Africa and Australia, we landed and set up camps near these Aboriginal tribes, and we hop out of a prop plane and light up a cigarette, walk over to an Aboriginal and hold up a voice recorder next to him, record his voice and play it back. And they look at us and go, my gosh, these must be gods. They just came out of some large living creature that flew in the sky, and they have the power of fire and can record a voice. So, what happens is the soldiers receive drop shipments as planes, fly over and just drop supplies to the camp. Sometimes these shipments would actually land in the middle of the tribe rather than soldier camp.
Right.
The tribe cracks it open, and there's canned goods and weapons and supplies, and they're like, "Oh, this is from the gods." And eventually, the soldiers pack up their camp and leave. So what happens is an interesting phenomenon. The Aboriginals start to scrape away runways. They build straw models very accurately depicting of what they saw of the plane, and then they sit there for hours looking up at the sky, hoping to lure back these amazing people that brought gifts and dropped stuff to them. Well, this is exactly what we see around the world at many of these ancient sites, like the Nazca lines in Peru, or many of these megalithic sites around the world.
Oh, Jason, I'm 100% with you on those. In fact, I've said on this show and many times in the past that I believe a lot of our mythology on this planet, for example, certain things like demons, chupacabras, leprechauns, these kind of mythologies that we have built in for over the last couple hundred years or more, really are just misidentification of some kind of encounter with a possible alien.
Okay, tell me what Bat Squatch is then.
I have no answer for that. Not yet, anyway.
I can give you an answer.
Have you heard of Bat Squatch?
Sure. Well, I don't know what the answer to it is, but I at least have a line of thinking that is logical. Most of the interactions when we have a Bigfoot sighting, it takes place right on the edge, of their environment and ours. Meaning, most of these Sasquatch, Yeti, or snow mountain versions, they all live in the deep recesses of either the jungle or where people just aren't, habitating. They never come into the deep areas of our cities. We never really go into the deep areas of the jungles. We only have the interaction on our edges. If you fly over anywhere in North America, it's pretty much rural. There's plenty of room for things to be running around that we might not be fully aware of. But it's
I agree with that,
yeah, and it's interesting that these ancient Sumerian texts, which I spent a lot of time researching, are very specific in explaining how there was a Neanderthal man naturally evolving here, and that they chose to take this being and put their genetic marker on it creating us in their image and after their likeness, just like the Bible says. But what we have right there is a genetic intervention, which could possibly explain a line of thinking for why there's a missing link in the Darwinian evolution. But let's not forget that Neanderthal man that was here naturally and possibly could have kept evolving into today's Sasquatch.
That's true. But my question is, though, Jason, why hasn't somebody killed a Bigfoot yet and brought it out as evidence? Because every time we hear somebody killing a Bigfoot or we hear of any sort of Bigfoot evidence, it turns out to be a hoax, and it's a real big letdown. Why haven't we had any credible evidence? I know, look, I get what you're saying. They live in areas where we just don't go there very often. But there's a lot of people that take these trips out in the woods to try to see Bigfoot, and they go out and they hunt for Bigfoot. Why no evidence still? I mean, over 50 years now, and still no evidence, no credible evidence that Bigfoot is real.
I know. Well, there's still the Loch Ness Monster and these ancient, dinosaur fish and various things that are seldomly seen, or you see a picture of it and then you arrive and they're like, oh, the locals ate it, sorry. There's evidence of these things all around the world, but
dropped it off at the sushi house.
Yeah, not that easy.
Wouldn't it be interesting if, say, the only time that people do get to see Bigfoot is because that's when he not he, because there's more than one, obviously, but when some of them land on a scout ship or something from whatever planet they're from, and they're just here visiting. And that's how remotely you see them, and they're not actually indigenous to this planet. I think that might make a little bit more sense, and that's why we can't just find one and shoot it, you know what I mean? Because they're not really from here.
I'd be a lot happier meeting Chewbacca rather than what we see in, like, Harry and the Hendersons. So
you want me to get him on the phone?
he could do that, actually. But who's not to say that Chewbacca wasn't inspired by Bigfoot? George Lucas was inspired by all kinds of different things when he made
Why not?
Movie,
yeah.
So.
I don't know how much alcohol was involved when he dreamt up the movie, but he did a good job, and he's created a whole new religion. There's Jediism now as a religion. So,
well, a lot of the things that he brings up in the movies are interesting from again a higher level of thought, like midichlorians and the Force. Or, a galactic federation of intelligent races that have, come together to, work peacefully. I often think it's interesting that, people ask, well, why aren't the aliens visiting us now? Or why aren't they openly visiting us? Like it seems the ancient cultures went to great lengths to not, they didn't just write it down on some papyrus. I mean, they spent years, putting this on wall reliefs and stone tablets and such. I think it's very possible that, the reason why we're not seeing outright visitations is possibly because Earth is on quarantine. If there is this galactic federation of planets, they would look it up.
I could see that. I could see the space TSA saying you can't clear through customs and come to this planet. I could honestly see it. We've always had stories about, we went to the moon, but we were told purposely not to come back.
It makes perfect sense because, Alan, look how aggressive we are on this planet. We can't even stop fighting over whose God is better than whose. You know what I mean? So if you're an alien race, why would you?
Come down and make a statement saying, I'm not the one. Or I am the one that, that's the best.
But yet he's not done that. Shame on him.
But hold on. According to Jason, from what I've understood, there are so many different possible gods if you go with the Sumerian text.
Well, now that we're not talking about God with a capital G. We're talking about smaller gods.
We're talking about misrepresented gods.
Correct.
Ancient man didn't understand. Here's another analogy.
Right.
If you look at today's Iron Man or the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, as an example, is not a god. He's just a dude with technology. However, when he becomes Iron Man, now he has godlike powers. So I think it's very possible ancient man witnessed beings that harnessed technology to the point they were not able to discern technology from spiritual or supernatural.
Right, no, that makes perfect sense.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm 100% with you. In fact, that goes with my statement earlier that some people just misunderstood what gods and demons or whatever were, and they were just aliens with technology.
Yeah, but if we go with that route, how many people that are significant Bible thumpers that claim miraculous healings and things like that. How do we put that into the equation? Are we saying it's all psychosomatic? Is it all driven by their own mind?
Well, now we're getting into areas that kind of deviate from my specialty and knowledge.
What I'm saying, Jason, is I'm saying if you're right, and what we perceived as God or gods plural are just beings with technology that we don't comprehend or understand, how do we factor in religious people claiming these miracles of healing and whatnot?
Well, here's the way you fact. I could answer. Actually, I could answer up to that point real quick.
Okay.
A lot of it is delusional. A lot of it is mythological stories misinterpreted throughout history.
Okay.
A lot of it is made up because let's face it, a lot of the Bible is a nice work of fiction. Yeah, I said it. It is. It's true. It's a nice work of fiction made up by men. See, there was no God or gods that came from the sky and said, we have a book. This is the Old Testament, and soon we're going to release the second version, the New Testament. That never happened. So since that never happened, and we know that this was written by men, who knows how much of it is actual based on any fact.
Well, I understand where you're going with that, but then I'm going to throw this question at you and Jason at the same time. You've heard of the Bible Code, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Why does the Bible Code seem to work no problems with the Old Testament, but it is invalid when you're dealing with the New Testament? Aha.
Has to do with something with King James, right?
No. I'm just saying that the Bible Code, being able to, punching it into a computer and letting the Old Testament get run through, seems to be able to foretell the past and the future. But when you try and use the New Testament using the Bible Code algorithm.
Better writers back then? I don't know. What do you think, Jason?
I don't know. I'm just wondering if there was something similar to that in any of the Sumerian texts.
That's a good question, actually. Jason?
Well, that's obviously where I could speak a little bit more clear is some of the Sumerian information. And I don't know of any actual Bible code or hidden information, but what's really interesting about the Sumerian texts is that this is the first civilization that we have record of on Earth, coming out of around 3800 BC. We are finding evidences of cultures going much further than that, but not a complete civilization. So Sumer is pretty much right out of the Stone Age, the first civilization we have. And they left us all of these amazing documents and pictograms, all recorded in stone. Most of the information is just their daily lives of recording transactions and education and systems and laws and stuff like that. But there's also a very large amount of information where they discuss living amongst their living gods. It's almost like the Bible's time when they were talking about there were giants upon the earth.
Right.
It appears as if the Sumerian culture was actually living amongst their living gods, and they called these beings Anunnaki. And that term meant those who from heaven come to earth. So, in some of those, in some of those tales, there are actually quite a bit of interesting data where, again, we can only prove it based on our current sciences. That's our current sciences. So things like extraterrestrials, our current science isn't quite savvy with. But there are Sumerian texts that clearly explain that a high priest, a Sumerian high priest, would sit with a scribe, someone who can actually read and write cuneiform script, Sumerian writing, and knew the way to use the scribe. It's kind of like an oversized screwdriver. A high priest would sit with a scribe literally in front of an Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki would explain certain information to the high priest as the scribe would write it down. Now, some of these tablets, as an example, record astronomical movements, and this was all very sacred information. There was, as an example, a priest that knew this stuff could tell you 50 years in advance on what specific day there would be a solar or lunar eclipse. So they had a lot of information that we can prove with our current understandings of science and astronomy, but they also talked about a whole other realm which we still need to catch up on, which is they explain that their gods, these Anunnaki, come from another planet within our own solar system that they called Nibiru, or the 12th planet. So my last little point there, guys, is, the Sumerians say the Anunnaki came from the 12th planet. Well, all around the world, this knowledge of these myths are similar in the sense that, okay, the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki, come from the 12th planet. Well, we also have the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 disciples of Jesus, the 12 Greek Olympians, 12 hours in a day, 12 inches in a foot, 12 in a dozen, the 12 constellations of the zodiacal breakdown of the heavens. All of this information originally started out of Sumer and has spread to the various other cultures. So yeah, it is very interesting that it all is somewhat connected from the stories we hear around the world.
Now here's a question. If I can ask a question.
Go ahead.
Does the let me phrase this right. Does Atlantis timeline happen before or after Sumer?
Way before Sumer.
Okay, way before Sumer, Atlantis existed. Does Sumer reference Atlantis? Do they have knowledge?
We don't even know what Atlantis is or if it existed. And here's how I would kind of answer that. I mean, Atlantis in everyone's current mind is this mythical continent that somehow sunk into the ocean.
Right.
I think that Atlantis, because we don't really know, but I do believe that it was some type of Atlantean culture. Let's just call it a lost advanced civilization. And this is actually one of the latest things that I'm exploring, is simply all of the great ancient cultures we have today, Egyptian, Mayan, Sumerian, Aztec, they all reference this advanced lost civilization. And we're seeing pieces around the world of what the beings from this lost civilization might have looked like. If we go to some of the most ancient sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, what we've just found, it's about 13,000 BC. It's pretty old, not 3,800 BC, but 13,000 BC.
That is old.
Göbekli Tepe, but it's just one area. It's not a complete civilization. Göbekli Tepe displays these long, slender beings. They're humanoid, but they're long, slender beings, and their hands are wrapped at the waist. Now, if we go to the island of Rapa Nui, Easter Island, the Moai head, the Moai statues in general, what we thought were just heads, are actually long, slender bodies. They're just buried underground. All we see is the heads above ground. They've dug them out now, and they're long, slender beings, again, with their hands wrapped at the waist. We've seen Sumerian figurines depicting the same thing, and in Bada Valley, Indonesia, some of the most ancient sites where we're finding archaeology and civilizations, there are these beings, these slender beings, and their hands wrapped at the waist. I'm thinking that this is a reference to this lost ancient Atlantean culture, if you will. They wouldn't have been on one continent, though, if they were advanced. They would have been global. And that's why we see these monuments all around the world that we don't quite understand why they were built or how they were built. I think they're part of this lost ancient culture that was around thousands and thousands of years ago that we are just starting to piece together.
Actually, I'll go a step further, Jason. I think my theory on Atlantis is, and you can follow along here by all the evidence provided to us by NASA over the last couple of decades in their interest on the red planet. I think Atlantis was Mars at one point, and it was a thriving planet with life on it. Things happened beyond the control of the Martians. They had to leave and ended up on Earth, and that's where you got the hybridization, and boom, you have your ancient aliens.
Well, that's again a high-level explanation that, hey, why not? I mean, that's what originally sparked my interest into all of these ancient sites on Earth. Is that in college, when I was 39 and when I was 21, someone had mentioned that there was a face in pyramids on Mars, and I was like, no, there's not. Why would NASA hide something like that? And so when I just started to look into it casually, I found out that the principal photographer that controls 90% of the cameras that we've been putting up on our orbiters and our landers comes from Malin Space Science Systems.
Correct.
And Malin Space Science Systems, which just happened to be located in San Diego where I was going to college. So I contacted feverishly Dr. Mike Malin, and I finally got him on the phone, and I asked him, just as a layman college student, I said, listen, is there any possibility that the face and pyramids in Cydonia, are these artificial? And he was like, well, no. this is all natural sand and weather-eroded objects. And this really raised my eyebrows further because I was able to find at least 4 or 5 peer-level review scientists that held PhD credentials in satellite telemetry and had published data about the surface of Mars. One guy specifically, Dr. Mark Carlotto, if you Google his name, Mark Carlotto, he developed mathematical algorithms called a fractal analysis that if you ran his fractal analysis over satellite telemetry from Russia, you could identify tanks or troops, things that were shrouded by, plants or tarps. This could identify them as artificial. When he ran these same fractal patterns over Cydonia, the face and pyramids come out to be over a 98% probability to be artificial. NASA never released any type of data like that. So I very quickly, for my own reasons, did research into Mars, and that's how I originally started all my research. But I quickly realized, well, wait a minute, I'm looking at structures on another planet. We have things all over the Earth here that still need to be answered.
Oh, correct, yeah. I'm with you 100%. In fact, the reason I think, that I would reference Mars is just because of the fascination that we have for that planet. It's almost like we're drawn to that planet. It's captured the imagination of this country for a long, long time. And I think it would be a perfect reason. But you're a perfect answer for where we came from or who are the ancient astronauts. But you're absolutely right, though, Jason. It is an intriguing thing that on this planet itself, there are so many mysteries and so many things that we still haven't really fully answered or discovered all over the planet, too. It's just an incredible world we live in. Now, what are your thoughts on the hollow Earth theory and inner Earth possibility of having inner Earth life?
Well, I'm actually looking into some of those topics for several episodes of Ancient Aliens. I know we've covered... Yeah, we've covered underground bases and tunnels, and I'd answer it from 2 ways. There is definitely mythological information that speak of a race of ant people that somehow possibly inhabited the inner Earth. Now, again, these come from ancient cultures. Speaking of these myths and legends, there are also Indian texts, ancient Vedic Indian texts that speak of the Nagas, these essentially like a reptilian race that live in the inner Earth.
Right.
Now, what I found really interesting, though, is some of the more modern evidence in that, if you were to Google U.S. Air Force drilling machine, you'll see pictures from back in the 70s of gentlemen standing next to a drill that looks like the size of a train. And from what I understand, they have the ability to, drill tunnels through the hardest substances like granite and such, and as they're drilling through the rock, it spits out a perfect runway behind the drill as it's going.
Yeah, it's a nuclear boring machine. It heats the rock up in front of it to such a high degree, and then actually presses it and takes that liquid that's now actually pretty much molten glass and pushes it to the sides to create smooth-sided and flat surface. No jagged edges as it's boring
through.
Now,
what you just said there was interesting, too, because that's essentially what vitrification is that molten glass look.
Right. Yeah. Well, by the way, jumping back to the binary star system thing, is it possible, as Jacko was saying, we have binary stars, is it possible we have a binary planet, which is Mars?
Thank you for bringing that up. I'd like to touch on that topic as we have a time remaining here. Not so much about the binary planet, that is an interesting thought, but from the binary solar system, this is actually a really interesting concept. People have heard of the Dark Ages or the Golden Age. What essentially is happening here on Earth is it appears that we're going through a large cyclical pattern that is caused by us being in a binary orbit, meaning all of the other solar systems that we've been filming externally from Mars seem to be binary. Most of them are binary, meaning they have at least 2 suns. Some of them 4, 6, 8 in this intricate dance. Most of the evidence is pointing to we are a binary solar system. Our other sun is probably a brown dwarf or a dark star. It's not not a very bright sun.
But it still gives off heat.
Exactly.
Right. Well,
yes.
it's for our comic book reference, our comic book nerds out there. Think Superman with the red sun in Krypton. That's kind of like we're talking about here. For anybody who's listening in.
Excellent reference.
There you go. But it's funny because I remember back a few years ago, I saw a documentary, Jason, on Zecharia Sitchin speaking to folks at NASA, and they're talking about how NASA believes that there could definitely be a binary star, a twin star to our own sun out there, and it could very well be what's tugging at some of the planets, or what's causing some of the things that they're seeing as a possibility. Now, a red dwarf sun would actually lend itself to be really hard to detect, obviously because it doesn't emit the same kind of light as a regular sun or a regular star as our star would. But you think by now NASA would have found this thing. Now, the 3,600-year elliptical orbit that its planet Nibiru is on, of course, everybody knew, or everybody thought, Jason, that it was going to come by this past year in 2012, but it didn't happen. We're still here. Nobody got destroyed. Nibiru didn't destroy us. Do you think there's still a chance that actually might be happening, or do you think that it might have come and gone and just it didn't get close enough for us to really even see it, or what do you think happened there?
We kind of slid through a couple of different pieces there.
Just a little bit.
As far as the binary orbit, I do believe that our system is probably binary, and I'd love to touch on that more. I do also believe that Nibiru, as a planet that would be an extrasolar planet, would be independent of the binary effects of our solar system. I think these are two different effects. The 3,600-year orbit is the orbit of Nibiru, which is, again, something that was based on Sumerian evidence that said a completed circle, 360 degrees, they called it a shar, was also the number that they gave for Nibiru, just adding another 0, 3,600. Now, as far as the orbit of Nibiru, most of the models up to this point, whether it be from NASA or for Zecharia Sitchin, are all based around an orbit that goes around one sun, not two. So this binary model does calculate a lot of new pieces if we were to incorporate, let's say, like Nibiru, and that might explain how it's able to loop back around towards us if it's going around a second sun. I'd like to avoid the Nibiru part for just a second and focus back towards the binary, because it is a very interesting piece that I'd like to tie in, again, to these monuments around the world, and I think this is why they were built. What I'm seeing, gentlemen, is there is a new model put forth by the Binary Research Institute that explains precession of the equinox. And it's, instead of saying there's a little wobble on our Earth that's causes us to change the perspective of what we see every 2,000 years just by a slight degree or two, it's a very complicated model that they use explaining the precession of the equinox, and it's like 2,000 variables. There's a new way to explain the precession of the equinox, and it's based on a binary motion, our two suns. So think of it this way. If our sun is orbiting another sun, well, we're kind of spinning around our sun. We're in orbit around our sun. So if our sun is moving through space around another sun, we are as well.
Right.
And so there is a very interesting thought that says the binary orbit, when the suns are at their closest point in orbit around each other, we seem to be in the golden age here on Earth. When the suns are at their farthest point from each other in this binary orbit, we're in the dark ages. It almost appears as if we're going through a cycle where we go into the golden age and learn a lot of advanced things and probably evolve faster, can build monuments, and at that time, in the golden age or in our enlightened state, I'm sure we are interacting with higher beings, whether it be interdimensional, extraterrestrial, what have you. But then we go back into the dark ages, and we eventually forget all this. And we can even see evidence of this pattern in that ancient Sumer and Egypt, 2500 BC, 3800 BC, they were using what appears to be lost ancient technology, astronomy and electricity and things that we didn't think they had. But now, as we're coming back out of the Dark Ages again, we're now relearning a lot of this astronomical and lost information. So here's just a quick analogy. Now, stay with me, guys. I know this is heavy stuff, right?
This is.
This astronomical cycle that lasts 24,000 years has an effect on us, meaning, as we go through this large cycle of time, things happen to humanity. there's two smaller cycles to put it into perspective about how an astronomical cycle affects us. Cycle 1 is we're spinning on our axis, and as the Earth spins on its axis, we go into day and night.
Right.
When it becomes nighttime, we lose consciousness. That's an effect on us based on an astronomical movement. Cycle 2, we're orbiting the sun, and as we orbit the sun, seasons change and animals migrate. Again, these are all physical effects based on an astronomical movement. So cycle 3 is possibly this binary orbit, which all the ancient cultures, including the Mayans, were aware of this larger cycle that seems to have an effect on us.
Yeah, but how do you go from an effect of the day and night to we forget all technological advancements and are wiped out? Our memories are wiped of any knowledge.
Well, we're talking about a large cycle of time that is very hard for us to comprehend, and I can give you another idea.
I mean, I can understand, for not to cut you off, but I can understand.
Here's an example. Here's a simple example. Sorry to cut you off, but there's an insect called the mayfly. It only lives 24 hours.
Right.
So if another mayfly came up to it and said, "Hey," and it was a cloudy day, let's say it's a completely cloudy day, overcast, my mayfly comes up to it and says, "Hey, I've heard of this thing called sunshine and a breeze, but I just don't see it." So all of the ancient cultures tell us that, yes, there are things that affect us, but in our short lifespan, we still have a lot of comprehending to do.
Well, that's what I was getting at. I could see, throughout generations, certain things get lost because of the cultures that come and go. And one day, sadly, America might not be here. We might be another one that disappears in a few hundred years. And, eventually some knowledge will be gone, especially since we're all going digital now. If we all go digital in 100 years and there's a bomb that goes off and everything is offline forever, we're done. There'll be no records. I wonder if they all went digital.
There's also the possibility that, stones and trees and natural, like crystals and things, can store information in ways that we just don't understand yet.
Ah, that's true.
And there's a lot of interesting texts that come out of these ancient Mahabharata and Vedic texts from India that have a lot of knowledge of when we were in this golden age, and have recorded times of when, these enlightened beings could float and use their brain much more powerful than we can now, and almost explain it as saying we get to the point where we're able to interpret God. Well, we're pretty far off from that now. We're about 8,000 years before we would re-enter the golden age. But we are on the upswing out of the dark ages.
Do you think we're ever going to get to a Type 1 civilization? I know we're Type 0 according to Michio Kaku. Do you think we'll ever make it to the Type 1 civilization?
I sure hope so, but that's a great analogy to look at. There's these levels of civilizations, and we're obviously at the very bottom of that chain currently.
Which would be why the aliens don't want to have us interfering and they have us quarantined out here. What do you think? These guys are Type 0. They don't belong in space.
Yeah.
But,
I think that's probably logical.
Yeah, going back to what I was asking you earlier, though, before with Nibiru, obviously 2012 didn't happen. Do you think that there's still a chance that we actually might get Nibiru at some time in the near future? Because I don't think the calculations or the math was too accurate anyway, and I never really bought the whole 2012 mythology to begin with. So people just tried to connect the two, I think, and that's what happened with that. But do you think there's still a chance in maybe the next 10, 20 years that we might actually see a Planet X arrive at the scene and look up at the sky, and there it is, Nibiru?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I really don't know. I've never really subscribed to the idea that it's going to happen within our lifetime, just based on the math. But the evidence of looking for things that appear in our solar system, we've seen some events like Hale-Bopp, Shoemaker-Levy 9 that broke up into 9 fragments and struck Jupiter. Most of these large events that are a solar system level event, they're always spotted by the amateur astronomers before the professional community. We have such a large amount of global amateur astronomers, they usually will pick these things up and then escalate it to the professional community. So, in my opinion, anything that's 4 to 8 times the size of Earth, we're definitely going to see it if it's anywhere near the inner part of the solar system.
You would hope so at this point. It'll be a sad day in NASA if they don't see it, and it's coming right towards us. Now, what are the chances, though, that they do see it and they don't say anything anyway? But, of course, then the amateur astronomers out there, I'm sure, would eventually pick up on something that's going on, something that's coming our way.
Only if they know where to look.
Well, yeah, then there's that, if they do know where to look. The thing is, again, space is very big, huh, Jason?
Yeah, that's the other part of it is, as you mentioned earlier, NASA in the late 80s and 90s became aware of orbital perturbations on the outer planets, which the planets are being pulled in a certain direction, and they're like,
right.
What is it? Where is this large mass? Is it a planet? And since then, they've revised their math calculations and started using infrared scopes to look out there and see if they can find any other bodies in our solar system. And yes, they've found a bunch of these extrasolar planets. The problem is that most of them are very cold rocks, if you will, just large floating rocks out there.
Right, yeah.
Sedna, Quoar, Xena, they give them all these funny names, but they're just large chunks of ice. At least we're aware of them now, and the challenge really is this, there's so many of these things floating out there. To actually plot the orbit of all of them just requires too much manpower. So the only ones that I'm really interested in are something that's 4 to 8 times the size of Earth, very large, as what's described as the ancient Nibiru, which was depicted as a glowing cross in the sky.
Now, do you think Nibiru is, in Revelations, of course, Wormwood was the name of it. Do you think Wormwood is Nibiru?
I really don't know. I know we have a lot of these biblical ties with earlier versions of Sumerian, like, the flood tablet, or the story of Adam, or the story of Noah's Ark, or any of these types of things. Right. There is a Sumerian derivative that predates the English version. So, yes, I'm sure it's possible that some of the information of a global catastrophe caused by Nibiru's passing and the Great Flood and such, these are talked about in the Sumerian epic of creation, where in English we have 7 days of creation. In Sumerian we have 7 stone tablets of creation, part of a longer tale, the Enuma Elish. And they're very specific about why there was a great flood. It was the passing of this large planet. And, it's explained that possibly our ice sheets, like Antarctica and South Antarctic region, Nibiru passing by could have literally just cracked off an ice sheet, and literally just like an ice cube going into a glass of water, the water levels rise instantly all over the world. Now, whether that's going to happen again in the future or how that would play out, who knows? But we would definitely be able to see, I believe, some planet that size, 48 times the size of Earth, I believe would be spotted early on.
Yeah, you would think. Let me ask you real quick, Jason. Most of your research is based, obviously, I would say, when it comes to the Sumerian text, on Zecharia Sitchin's work, correct?
Well, Zecharia Sitchin's work is the basis for looking at the Sumerian culture. The idea that there's these depictions all over Iran and Iraq of these beings with wings, depicted as gods. What we see is a similarity to all the other cultures around the world that depict and have similar stories of gods coming down. That's the angle that I've always been interested in, is this global system of kind of something that was happening to our ancient cultures that involved beings coming down from the sky. Zecharia Sitchin has gotten a lot of controversy because there are either fundamental Christians or people who are linguists that would argue a certain term like Anunnaki, or let's say the word Nephilim or Nibiru, but there are very few that were able to take the information in its entirety and to distill it into a way that makes logical sense, based, again, on the similarities we see from other cultures around the world. And so what Zecharia did was very intriguing in that he vetted the Sumerian culture's knowledge of these Anunnaki, but then also showed how this type of information spread to other cultures, like the Egyptian winged disc being very similar to what we see as the winged disc used by the Anunnaki in southern Iraq. So
now, let me ask you, though, Has there been any researchers that have verified Zechariah's work and said that what he's done is credible?
Well, when you say verified his work, there's only about 250 people in the world that actually translate cuneiform script directly.
Okay.
Zechariah Sitchin has now passed away.
Correct. Yeah.
So it would really take someone who looks at the information, again, not through the layman or the strict academic eye.
I can never
more,
do it.
Again, through this ancient astronaut lens, which, again, looks for similarities that we see in patterns coming from other cultures that we just, don't explain how they could have had this information unless there was some type of intervention by some lost race or possibly extraterrestrials.
It's fascinating. Jason, listen, we're almost out of time. I do want to give you a chance to plug your website. Any conventions you want to be on that you want to talk about, or if you have a book you want to go ahead and plug real quick, go for it.
Yeah, just basically as we began the show, I let everyone know I'm starting a new service. It's called Ancient School. And so I have a special bonus. It's basically Ancient School is going to allow you to receive video lessons with top experts delivered right to your inbox. So, yeah, you can check out a free lesson if you just go to ancientbonus.com/radio. ancientbonus.com/radio. And you can get a free video lesson and a copy of one of my books just for listening to tonight's show.
That's awesome. Everybody listening, please check out the website and get a copy. Good stuff.
Thank you so much again for having me on your show.
No, Jason, thank you so much for being here with us on Skywatchers Radio.
Yeah,
really
thanks for
appreciate
the
your
time. We really, really do appreciate it.
We're almost out of time. We definitely want to have you back on pretty soon, though. You've been a fascinating guest. And the ancient alien theory, the ancient astronauts, Nibiru, Planet X, all that stuff is fascinating, isn't it, Alan? I mean, it just fascinates the heck out of me.
You have no idea. I'm more than enthusiastic. I just don't sound it at this hour of the night.
So imagine when we move to 1 in the morning. Jeez. But Jason, thank you again, my friend, for being on here, and we will be in contact soon so we can have you back on the show here on Skywatchers. Fascinating gentleman, everybody. Jason Martell.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Take care. Guys, we're almost out of time here. I want to wish everybody a great evening, a fantastic evening, a nice evening, except for Alan. I don't know. I think he already fell asleep on us. Alan. There he goes. Okay, yeah, he's sleeping. For everybody listening in through Dark Matter Radio Network on PSN Radio, for Keith Rowland, our webmaster and the chief in charge, for my sleeping co-host Alan Weiler, this is Skywatchers Radio. I'm Angel Espino, and we will be back next week with another installment of Skywatchers Radio. So stick around. By the way, stick around for real, because right after this show, Epic Voyages will be on, and that's going to be on the Dark Matter Radio Network, so please stick around for that. And also, please stick around if you're listening on PSN. Open Minds will be next in a few minutes. And guess who they have on, Alan? Guess who their guest is?
Let's see. Since Alejandro Rojas is part of Open Minds, probably not him. Who do they have this week?
No, they have a guy named Jason Martell on. Go figure.
Really? You think about it? Hey, by the way, I just realized that this week I forgot to wish him a happy birthday. So if he does actually end up listening to this, happy birthday, Travis.
Yes.
Mention that.
Travis Walton, yeah. Happy birthday to Travis. And also happy birthday to Nancy Burns, by the way.
Happy birthday to Nancy, too.
Yeah, people celebrating birthdays all over the world, and that's always good. Guys, we'll catch you next week. Please stick around for the shows coming up. Skywatchers Radio out. Take care, everybody.
Nighty night.
Unless they're a little bit under the spell of moonshine or pot. Maybe is pot legal up there?
No, they got medical marijuana. But
see, that would do it. Yeah. That's all you need.
Oh, I sneeze so hard my back hurts. I need my pot card.
Correct. There you go. I don't know. And look, there could be some truth to the Mothman, to Bigfoot, Bat Squash. There could be some truth to anything.
Wait. That's Bat Squatch, not Squash.
Whatever.
Squatch.
That's what I said. Anyway, there could be some truth to any of this stuff, Paul, but the problem, again, is it goes back to the lack of evidence. But, Alan here just showed me a picture which I think might be proof. In fact, I'm going to post this on our Facebook page. If everybody goes over to Skywatchers Radio's Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Skywatchers Radio. You'll be able to see the picture right now sent to me by Alan, my co-host, and I think, Alan, you're right. This is definitive proof.
I think it's a definitive proof of Bat Squatch. Absolutely. And we like people to call in and comment on that photo, and Angel will be going over that phone number again since I still don't know it by heart.
Yeah, it's 786-245-8127. Again, 786-245-8127. Open lines from here to the end of the show tonight. Again, we were listening to the words of Mr. Paul Dale Roberts, who was informing us of this never-heard-before creature, the Bat Squash.
Squatch, not squash.
Leave me alone, man. I'm Cuban.
It's not crushing you. It's not crushing you, okay? I'm like, dude, come on, really?
Are you gonna start with me, man? Am I like Data from the Goonies now?
What is this? Like... Is this like Lost in Translation for you? It's
bit.
Like, is this the Latino?
I'm still trying to look, man. Don't make me say really stereotypical things here about Latinos.
But
But this is an amazing picture, Alan. I will say this much. I mean, I've never heard of this thing before, but after seeing this picture, I'm definitely intrigued now. Go ahead, Paul.
One thing is, there's so many stories, of cryptids and everything else, and there's really hard to get any kind of evidence. And, sometimes there's the footprints. I haven't heard about any really good hair samples that show that the DNA is something else. But, what is really intriguing and shows some kind of proof that there is life out there besides here on Earth is the case of High Brazil.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the island that's supposed to be
actually told her that they're able to transform from energy into matter. So I figure if the Greys, and also, too, if you look at the old Sumerian clay tablets, they talk about a creature similar to Bigfoot, and they went into caverns. What's not to say that they don't have the same power as the Greys do?
It's a good point.
And if Mothman, if he's an extraterrestrial, he may have the same power. And even though we're able to see him fly, he's actually in an energy form.
Now, has there been any credible proof of the Mothman, or mostly just stories and reports of people seeing him?
Well, yeah.
Like any images, any footage, any footprints,
any DNA, anything?
Any hair.
They've had some documentaries of which I've actually looked at, and where they have pictures of what looks like a Mothman on top of a building. So, but the only thing is something, Mothman, the Greys have more proof than the Mothman. The Greys have more proof than, let's say, Bat Squatch. But it's just an interesting thing. It's why are certain people saying that they're seeing these things? What are they actually seeing? Are they seeing like a huge owl? And I'm just kind of curious, and talk to some of these people, and maybe I'll have my own experience. I don't know.
Maybe they're using really good moonshine these days.
Well, even like when you watch Destination Truth, I mean, so many of those programs, they hunt for this and they hunt for this cryptid, and they come out empty-handed. I mean, there's just so many stories.
That's my main issue right there. There's never any definitive proof. You know what I mean?
Hang on. I found a photo of Bat Squatch. I'm actually sending it to you in Skype.
Oh, I see that. Let me download this thing.
And while you guys are looking at that,
yes.
Also, too, okay, check this out. I work at Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Wow.
And I talk to so many hunters, and I got so many hunters out there who claim they see Bigfoot. So, And a lot of the hunters know that I am a paranormal investigator on the side, and they talk to me on the side, and they say, hey, Paul, I could tell you a story. So I hear so many stories. So are all of these people lying, or are they actually seeing something? I mean, and I'm pretty sure that these hunters know a bear from a Bigfoot.
I agree with that. 100%.
All right, everybody, we are back on Skywatchers Radio right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network and PSN Radio. And with us live is Paul Dale Roberts and his friend Monique, who's on the line with us. Paul, what's up, buddy? You're back on the air.
Hey, what's up, Jacqueline? Hey, that cough is because 2 days ago I had a terrible cold. And now Monique has, my roommate, she has my cold. Yeah, so, oh well.
Also, you guys are going back and forth with the terrible cold here, huh?
Yeah. So, I'm still a little bit congested, but
aside from that, how you been? Aside from the terrible cold,
I've been on a lot of investigations. I'm still waiting for the summer to get here because we're going to do that Mount Shasta UFO Bigfoot investigation, and then we're going to do an investigation over in Antioch, in which UFOs are being seen near a diamond mine and a gold mine.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So,
now, can we get some gold to pay for our trip to Mount Shasta?
That'd be nice.
Hey, there you go. Well,
wait a minute, when is the Mount Shasta trip? Anyway, when is that Mount Shasta trip, and how do we join if we want to?
Oh, that's in July. So we'll be headed up there, camping out all night, and doing a Bigfoot hunt during the daytime and a UFO hunt during the nighttime. And Mount Shasta, being a very mystical mountain that it is, the last of the Lemurians supposedly live inside the caverns. They even had a sighting of the Bat Squatch. And the Bat Squatch was actually seen in Mount Rainier, but now there's reports that the Bat Squatch is being seen at Mount Shasta.
Okay, I've yet to hear the term Bat Squatch, so...
Yeah, that's new for me, too. What, is he like the cousin of the Batman? What are we working with here?
Well, the Bat Squatch is basically something that kind of almost resembles a Sasquatch, but it has the head of a bat. And so, therefore, it's called the Bat Squatch.
That, now that you say it, it makes perfect sense.
Hang on, I got to Google this one.
The Bat Squash.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Google it. Yes.
Bat Squatch.
And it was the very first sighting, and where it was the moniker Bat Squatch came from, was
you saw a chicken 100 feet in the air.
I am with you 100%, but we could say the same thing about the Mothman.
Right.
I can tell you how it flies. I can tell you actually how it probably flies.
Okay.
Very difficult.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Mothman, supposedly came out of a vortex out of this abandoned TNT factory over at Point Pleasant, right?
Okay.
So,
sounds good to me already.
Okay, and we never caught a Bigfoot. Okay, sure, we got this hunter who's climbing up and down. He shot one. I haven't seen it yet. What if Bigfoot, Mothman, and Bat Squatch are all elemental? So if they're elemental, let's say they can change themselves from a matter form into energy, then they would be able to fly.
I don't think they're on based on how they've acted, based on what people are seeing. They're on a high enough plane of existence to transform themselves into energy. They are too.
You never know.
They are too primal.
Even the Greys go through walls. Yeah, abductees are saying the Greys, when they're abducted, they go right through the walls.
You're right, but we don't know if... Yes, but Greys have been known to use this thing called technology in one form or another. I have yet to hear Bat Squatch going through TSA to get on a plane to fly.
Maybe the wings are some form of technology and not natural.
But the only thing is, though, as a paranormal investigator, I have to investigate. So
I agree
I have to
100%.
check it
Now, hold on.
Like I said, I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm
Right.
saying I got a problem with the physics of them flying.
But as an investigator, what have you come up with? Like, what's your investigation led you with this thing?
Well, with the Bat Squatch, I've only interviewed. I actually interviewed a couple witnesses that actually claim they saw it.
Okay.
And there should be an article if you Google it, Bat Squatch, Paul Dale Roberts. You'll see the information on those witnesses. But they claim that they were out there. I forget what they were doing. They weren't hunting. I think they were just camping out, and they saw this creature coming out from the trees, and they had a huge wingspan. And it flew off, and it swooped. It swooped towards them, and then flew off. And okay, and I understand where he's come from about the Bat Squatch just being too heavy to fly off anywhere. But what I'm always thinking too is because a lot of the alien abductees that I do interview, they say that the grays come through the wall. So. And one lady who I interviewed, she said that they sighting in Mount Rainier.
No offense, but I'm looking at pictures and sketches. This thing looks like the gargoyles from the old cartoon on CW.
Kind of does, yeah.
Huh.
They look
freaky,
like,
though.
It more looks like a wolf with. I mean, I'm looking at these pictures here of the artists.
Well, remember this is artist rendering, and they're going to go on whatever rendering they have to go on, I guess. But I've never heard of the Bat Squash. Since when has this mythology been around?
Oh,
or this thing?
Well, I don't remember when the first sighting was in Mount Rainier.
Okay.
But I guess there was several people who saw this flying creature that had the face of a bat and the body of a Sasquatch.
I'm sorry, I got to stop you right there, and I got to call hoax on it this way, and only this way. The amount of mass of the weight of something of a Sasquatch size, you know what kind of wingspan you would need? You'd need at least a 50-foot wingspan to be able to lift that kind of weight. So unless you're telling me that thing has a wingspan of 25 on each side, and he's not hitting any trees with it, I got to say I don't believe
that's I don't know about that one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm calling you on it. I'm not calling you on it. I'm calling.
They're calling me out. What?
I'm not calling. I'm not calling you out. But I'm saying the physics of this. Unless
it just doesn't work. Yeah,
unless he's wearing a Batman anti-gravity belt or something, or whatnot, you cannot lift that mass with the short amount of wingspan that they're saying this thing has.
Now, are you actually looking at one of the articles on there?
Yeah, I am. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at like 4 or 5 different.
What are they saying? What are they saying that how much it weighs?
It doesn't say any weight, but based on the sketchings of the size of this thing, it doesn't have. I mean, they didn't make the thing step on a scale for a weigh-in for a boxing match here. Come on,
Well,
no, but look, just a mere definition of what we're talking about here. It's a bat-headed Sasquatch.
Also, too, no one's ever proven that Mothman exists. But
That's
the same thing. It goes with the Mothman.
You're
but
right.
There's so many people who actually believe it.
I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying
no, but Alan, hold on. He makes an excellent point though. We've always had the open mind that there could be something to the Mothman. If there is such a creature as a Mothman, it could be the same kind of thing with this creature.
Yeah,
this could be another Mothman out there.
Hold on, Angel. I'm not arguing with you that this exists. I'm arguing about it flying. When was the last time you